I have absolutely no idea why I got interested in music in the first place. But do we ever know why? Do we ever know why we fall in love with certain people? Why certain people leave us indifferent? Why do we like this food? Why don't we like that food? I didn't choose music, music sort of chose me. My mother was trying to persuade me to play the piano when I was 4, and I refused because girls play classical music and boys play soccer. That was my attitude. And then what happened was that I heard something when I was about 8 years old, some classical stuff. All of a sudden I got very interested in the subject, just something on the radio. And then I started playing instruments, and very soon after that, like 2 years later, I had decided that this is my life. This is going to be my life in some form. Some people get their kicks out of literary sources and so on and so forth. But my kicks come through my ears mostly. That's why I became a musician, because the sensual pleasure I get out of music and out of the musical sounds is so powerful that I have no choice. It's like an addiction, really. Why I started to compose early on was maybe related to other aspects as well, not only the sort of sensual thing, but also the fact that there was complete freedom. I really was the master of my castle, which I created for myself within my own little world. I.e., when I wrote a piece of music, I was completely free. Every human being, at some point, dreams about creating a private world where everything, absolutely everything, is the way you want it to be. Some people actually try to realize their dreams in society, and these people are usually called dictators. But when you create something, like a piece of music, then you can be the benign dictator within your own world. And I think as a child this was very important for me. One day I sort of woke up and realized that I had become a full-time conductor without ever having made a conscious decision to start conducting full-time or to develop a career. I wasn't interested in career, and I still think that career as a concept is completely uninteresting. I think what matters is the content. The music itself and the quality of my work. Career in itself is not interesting. It doesn't give me sensual pleasure. Career doesn't. Music does. Well, the first time I was conducting a somewhat professional group was at the Sibelius Academy. It was the examination for the conducting class. And I was conducting the Mozart Symphony. And the chairman of the jury asked what my name was, but I couldn't hear him very well because it was a very noisy, echoey room. So I thought he was asking what piece I was conducting. I said Mozart. And he said, really? He thought that the boy had a lot of self-confidence. So it was a somewhat unfortunate start because the orchestra started laughing, of course. So that was the first time. I never forget it. In the best performances, what happens is I feel that there's no need to translate between my thoughts and the music and vice versa. The music and my thoughts are the same thing. Of course, I cannot describe it because then there are no words. It's a wordless way of thinking, and that's why music is such a mystery. And that's why it's so frustrating to speak about music, because when it really happens, we all feel, whether you're performing or whether you're listening, that something extraordinary is happening that touches us in a way that words don't ever do, in a way that images never do, in a way that nothing else can do except music, because it somehow connects with that part of the mind that is otherwise protected. I used to hate Sibelius. When I lived in Finland, I grew up in Finland. If you grow up in Finland and show any interest towards music at all, even if you don't, Sibelius is everywhere. You cannot avoid it. His music is played in elevators and department stores, and I found it very irritating when I was in my teens. I think I have found some kind of a balance between being a Finn and conducting Sibelius and being expected to conduct Sibelius and supposedly have a sort of authentic point of view. You don't have to be Jewish in order to conduct Mahler. You don't have to be French to conduct Debussy. You don't have to be Finnish to conduct Sibelius. And especially what you don't have to be is you don't have to be any of these things in order to enjoy the music of these composers. And that's the whole point. I'm in a very fortunate position in that I don't have to conduct anything that I don't love. And that's one of the best things about being a music director. Every program I ever do consists of music I really strongly admire. I feel very privileged because I know that this is not the everyday situation for many, many, many people. But it just happens to be the case in my life, and I'm grateful. I believe that when the history of music of the 20th century is going to be written, say 50 years from now, the figure of Stravinsky is going to tower over everybody else. Not necessarily that his music was better than everybody else's music, it's not that, but it just happens to be the fact that he somehow covered more styles and more areas and more musical and artistic ideas than anybody else. He was very fortunate. He lived a very long life and he was productive until the very end. I cannot think of many other artists of any discipline with the same sort of imagination and fantasy as Stravinsky. And that's what it comes down to, really. The quality of the idea, the imagination. The technique, everybody can learn, ultimately, to make something that looks or sounds like a work of art. But the quality of the idea itself is the very central issue here. And Stravinsky never had bad ideas. And he had thousands of very good ideas, and I'm very, very envious. Also, what is very important from Los Angeles point of view is that he really was a Los Angeles composer. And what most people don't know is that his home in West Hollywood was the place where he lived for the longest time in his life in one place. In fact, if there ever was a home for Stravinsky, it was the house in West Hollywood. There's generally very little awareness in Los Angeles about the wonderful and interesting history of this place in terms of classical arts. And Stravinsky is maybe the most important figure ever to have lived in Los Angeles. But very few people know this. And we should really, at this point, start to identify ourselves with the local boy, Igor Stravinsky, who lived in West Hollywood, North Weatherly Drive.